Welcome to the Standard H podcast, a casual conversation about the lives of entrepreneurs and those growing companies. I can't thank you enough for listening, as these episodes have been a wonderful supplement to the line of apparel that I'm thrilled to share is steadily growing. If you like what you hear, please visit standard-h.com and sign up for our email list. The website not only hosts every episode of this show, but also allows you to explore the entire product assortment and our latest travel recommendations. As an email subscriber, you will be the first to receive product release information as well as receive offers no one else is privy to. Just visit standard-h.com for more information. Seeing Standard H worn by a growing number of watch enthusiasts has been incredibly cool to witness, so chances are good if you're listening to this, you're probably an enthusiast already. However, if not, it makes no difference, as Passion Fine Jewelry welcomes everyone into their shop in Solana Beach, California. If you're already in deep, you'll know some of the brands that Tim Jackson and his team carry, which are some of the most highly sought-after independent watch manufacturers sold today. Names like Roger Smith, Grunfeld, Kudoke, Habring, Sarpaneva, and many more. If you can't make it to California, visit passionfinejewelry.com for their entire offering online. This episode is also brought to you by Cantonment. Cantonment's flagship product, the kerchief, is a perfect medium between a handkerchief and a bandana. Featuring iconic designs such as the Fender Stratocaster and the dashboard of a Volkswagen GTI, these utilitarian cloths are an item that should be a mainstay in your everyday carry. Tuck one in a back pocket or use one as a neckerchief. Visit them at cantonment.co, that's cantonment.co, and use the code STANDARDH in all caps, no spaces, for 20% off everything in their online shop. Now let's get to the show. Nick Federowicz has a role within the watch community that is unlike any other. If you're not familiar with him as a person, perhaps you've heard of his company Patina. That's right, Nick doesn't sell watches or watch straps or even watch pouches. He sells vintage magazine ads which highlight some of the most iconic watches ever produced. I think it's fair to say that the watch industry, along with the car industry, have produced some of the most whimsical and thought-provoking, if not provocative, ads over the last 50-plus years, and Nick has brought them to offices around the world, framed and beautifully displayed. When I attended Wind Up Watch Fair in Chicago, Nick and I decided to meet up before one of the show days to record, since it would be the first time for both of us not only meeting in person, but also exhibiting at a show. I've bought from Nick, as perhaps have many of you, because he treasure hunts to find old ads and present them as art, which is something I've enjoyed buying to pair with the pieces in my own collection. I wanted to learn more about Nick and how he goes about his operation of Patina, and since I had never heard him on another podcast, I wanted to share his story with you. I really love his perspective, how he got into collecting ads, how he sets his prices, and how he embraces the challenges of running his business. I hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard H podcast. Well, Nick, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the show. It's good to see you.
Yeah, welcome to Chicago.
Yeah, thanks so much.
This is great to do in person.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually makes the editing a lot easier on my part, which is nice. As you said, we're in Chicago, Wind Up Watch Fair. Have you ever done a trade show before?
No, I've attended, but I've never been part of it as a participant, exhibitor. So yeah, this is a new experience for me, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you've partnered up with Oak and Oscar, right?
Yeah, I've known Chase for a long time. You know, Chase is probably the first person in the watch community that reached out to me through Instagram many years ago and invited me to a get-together. So I owe a lot to Chase for starting getting me involved in the watch community.
Nice.
And so looking forward to the show. I know it wouldn't be as amazing without his help and his team.
So you live here in Chicago, but you're not from here originally.
Right. So my wife and I have lived here since 2007, and we are from Rhode Island, so from the East Coast.
What was childhood like in tiny little Rhode Island?
Well, that's a good question because we just came back from a family vacation. So we just came back from Rhode Island, and whenever I'm home, you can't help but think of memories from your childhood. Driving around and visiting places trigger a lot of memories. And I grew up with my mom. She was a single parent. Pretty normal childhood. Nothing outrageous. No, we went to the beaches in the summers, and that was one of my best memories growing up with her. And our son just turned 5, so he's at a great age for my son and for me to, the boys to kind of go off and do their own thing. Our daughter's 2, so she's a little different age bracket. But I loved being able to take him to the water and smell the salt water and just start doing things with him and exposing him to things that are some of my fondest memories. So that was a really great, it was one of the things from this past family vacation, that I really enjoyed, was just reliving some of my childhood through him.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of parenting in general, right? Is like kind of seeing the world through your kids' eyes,
Yeah, you definitely, the topic of kids, we can just go on and on.
Right,
I don't want to bore some people, but
different podcast.
Yeah, no, I mean, watches and kids are my life, and I toggle back and forth between those two areas all the time, and I can talk to people about those subjects, parenting, kids, and watches. That's sort of my favorite, my favorite area to talk about. And
so, what did your mom do as a child? Or when you were a child, what did she do for work?
My mom had different jobs. She had like office jobs. She worked at a manufacturing company. She worked at she actually worked for a steel company in Rhode Island that had, I think they had an office presence here in Chicago. So when I was growing up with my mom, we never really traveled and went on vacations. We had one family member that we visited in Virginia, but other than that, we weren't taking trips. We weren't travelers, other than some road trips to the beach or to cut down a Christmas tree. But my mom she did a few work trips to Chicago when I was younger. So I actually can remember her coming to Chicago on work, maybe to visit a site or something. She works in the medical field now. She went to school to get her like a nursing license, a nursing certificate.
Like an RN?
Yeah, and so she works in a mental health office now. So again, like totally different than what she started out. But she's always been a really hard worker, and I certainly give her a lot of credit for that I observed when I was younger. And that is part of my life today, not only as in what I do for work, my work ethic, but also, a lot of the things I do as a parent. I can give her a lot of credit for, doing with me.
Right.
I think it's only natural that you do some of the things with your kids that your parents did with you, and then you do different things that you maybe wish they did, or maybe you think you can do better.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. Like it's often said that like you always become the parent you wish you had.
Yeah, I mean, it's parenting is crazy. It's like running a business. It's the best job. But it's a lot of work, and it's 24/7. Again, don't get me going on that road because it's a fun detour.
No, it's all good.
It'll take you down the scenic route of my experience parenting, 2 kids with my wife over the past 5 years.
Yeah, well, detours are kind of what these things are all about. But Chicago sports fans are kind of devout. Are you a sports fan at all? Like, are you into Chicago sports? Or are you like a Northeast guy? Are you a Boston fan?
Sports is part of my life, especially when I was a kid, playing sports or following sports teams. I grew up in the Northeast, so I've got. I grew up rooting for Northeast teams.
Understood.
And, as I've gotten older, I've definitely not as into sports as I was when I was younger. So I wouldn't say that I have like I'm not a diehard sports fan. I don't, root for anybody.
Right.
I think I watch sports now more as a social activity. If my kids get into sports, I mean, we do sports in the house. I mean, I'm, throwing a football to my son. I think I like participating in sports more now than I do watching it.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think my relationships with sports at this point is more social activity, doing it, hopefully doing it, for health and wellness. I would love to be more active, whether it's me riding a bike or starting to play tennis. I mean, I did a lot of these things as a kid. I played golf as a kid, and I just, I started working at a young age, and sports kind of took a back seat to working because, again, I grew up with just my mom, and I kind of had to get to work early so that I could do some of the things I wanted to do. She couldn't pay for everything.
Did you go to college?
I did.
Where'd you go?
In the Northeast. I went to a small business school called Bryant University.
Okay.
And college for me was a great experience, growing experience, meeting people. I think I got more out of college from a social standpoint than I did. I learned stuff academically. I went to school, I think I majored in finance and computer information systems, nothing that I do.
Right.
But I certainly learned a lot about money through the classes. That's not my career path. And I think I tried to go down that career path, but it wasn't me. And so, I went to a business school, and I met, the people that I met there and the experiences I had with people who, from different backgrounds, definitely shaped who I am today. Like, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't run into a handful of people in college that I was partly, it was, I get credit for, I give myself credit for kind of being not shy and sort of introducing myself to people who I wouldn't normally interact with.
Sure.
Where I grew up, my background. The school was close to home. I commuted. I didn't even live at college. So, my college experience was different than most people's. But I stayed on campus a lot. I got there early. I left late because I was hanging out with people in their dorms, or I got there early to study or do homework. So I went to bed at home in my own bed. But, I worked on campus a little bit. Yeah, college, it's kind of like when I look back at my childhood, there's so many great memories being in high school, or I wish I could go back. I'm a very nostalgic person. I think that's the reason I love these ads that I do.
Yeah.
You can't go back in time. And we live in the world we live in today, with technology being what it is and how crazy it is. Mm-hmm. But I always recollect, I'm always going down memory lane, and I'm always thinking about just those days.
Yeah.
Especially as I get older, with having kids and wondering what their experience is going to be like.
So what was your first job then?
My first job was a grocery store. I was 15, I think, just a local grocery store. I worked at a driving range. Worked at that grocery store through college. My job out of school was a department store, just retail. And again, I had some internships where I was like, in a cubicle or in an office or working at a computer, and it just wasn't the vibe. Didn't feel right. Yeah, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't my calling. I could have done the job. I could have got with the program and gone down some sort of manager track, or maybe, but I don't know. I just ended up in retail for a variety of reasons, and that's where I've worked pretty much my whole life until I stopped and do what I do now.
So you were working where exactly?
I started working at a department store in Rhode Island. It was in Nordstrom, which is a very well-known company, a great company, great history. And I worked there for a few years. I met my wife there. And then we ultimately, after a few years at the time, we lived with our parents. And we just decided, we were getting a little older. We were kind of excited to explore the world. And we just did a transfer with the company. And we transferred to Chicago. That was 2007. So, we're in our early 20s, I guess. And I remember that we had visited Chicago. We visited a few different cities to figure out, what's a good city for us? Should we move to Philadelphia? Should we move to a Florida city? Should we, DC? But Chicago really felt right. and it was a big city, but it felt like a neighborhood. You know, it's not like a New York city.
No, it absolutely does. Yeah.
It worked out really well. I mean, it's a great company. It's very entrepreneurial. It's very customer service oriented. I worked in fashion. I sold women's shoes for years, and I sold men's shoes. So that's really my background is retail, selling shoes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I did that for a while. I mean, I at one point stopped working at Nordstrom, and I worked for a small shoe company called Fry. They make boots mainly.
Very popular in the early 2000s.
Yeah, so I got that experience, you know, going from a department store to working in a more of a boutique, smaller, you know, retail.
So you left Nordstrom for Fry in-house.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's them different, you know, career moves or, you know, stuff happens. And
Sure.
That was sort of the next, you know, long-term job I had was at Fry. And then from there, I, you know, when I worked at Fry, that's when my wife and I were, you know, expecting our first child.
Nice.
And, you know, again, Fry came along at the right time for me in my life when I needed a little stability and,
Right,
you know,
less commission.
well, you know, I just, at the time I was just sort of floundering a bit and, you know, trying to find what the hell am I going to do? You know, retail's great. Is this my life? Is this what I wanted? You know, you just go through all these, you know, these thoughts, and now, you know, we're having a baby, and I wasn't working at the time for a little while there, and I needed a job, and I found Fry, and it was familiarity because it was retail, it was shoes, and but it was different because it was a small team, it was a little store, and I started out in a stock room. Actually, I wasn't even a salesperson, even though I had a good resume at Nordstrom. I think the only opportunity for me at the time was in the stock room. So, you know, here I am in probably my early 30s, you know, working in a stock room, and you know, we're having our first baby, and you know, Fry is great. The team there was really nice, and so it was like a little family.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had our son, and eventually I got to sell, so I got to make a little more money, and I started doing the ads just after our son was born, or just before, right around the spring of 2017. And then I continued to work at Fry while I guess growing a business or messing around with a business. And then eventually I just made a decision to just go out and see if I could make a living with ads. You know,
wow, that's crazy.
Doing the ads.
So like, what got you into ads other than just being a nostalgic person?
Well, that's my watch story, which, you know, some people may know. Basically, in the mid 90s, I had my sights set on buying a Rolex. Again, I was working at a grocery store, making some money. I wanted to buy something. You know, I got these paychecks, and that was what I wanted to buy. I didn't want a car. I didn't want to buy sneakers. And
was it a particular Rolex or
no,
just
the
a
brand,
Rolex?
The brand.
So, but why? Like, what? Because that marked something.
Well,
that
you
marked
know,
success for you, or
a few reasons. I don't think there's ever one reason people do things. I think there's a variety of reasons that, you know, at least for me, it's so, you know, growing up, again, I grew up with my mom, and we visited her friend who was married to a gentleman that had his own business. They were successful, they had a beautiful home, nice things. And whenever we visited them, just a visit or during a holiday, I couldn't help but notice their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were super nice, but they just had nice things. Mm-hmm. They had a Lexus, big home on the water, and my mom's girlfriend, the wife, she wore a Rolex. I don't know that I knew the brand, but the watch stood out. I remember. I mean, one of my great memories, you know, you talk about memories of childhood, and, you know, along with my mom taking me to the beach, it was my mom taking me to visit this family. And I remember always, you know, she'd be washing the dishes, and she had red fingernails and beautiful jewelry, and she had this gold Lady Datejust. And it wasn't just a gold Lady Datejust, it had emeralds and diamonds. So, you know, I gathered over the months or years that this was something, this watch was something that they treated themselves to or rewarded themselves, partly because, you know, they were successful. The husband worked hard, they had a good business. And so I equated owning a Rolex with something you just do for yourself, a goal. You know, you just do something nice for yourself when you work hard. So it just became a goal of mine. that was part of the reason I'm working hard. I want to get something nice for myself. And then I wanted to buy something that would last. I had something inside of me, wanted an item that I could have and possess my whole life, take with me through life's ups and downs, is sort of what I always describe the thought process. And this watch, I could wear it, put it on, and it had the potential to be with me my whole life, to get scratches on it and, be with me through the highs and lows. And then where the ads come in is I remember visiting the doctors, go to the dentist, go for your a checkup, and you're in the waiting room. And this is the late 90s. And there's magazines, there's Sports Illustrated, there's National Geographic, Architectural Digest. And, when you're in a waiting room at a doctor's office in the late 90s, you're not looking on your phone. You're just flipping through a magazine. And there, inevitably, I would come across Rolex ads. So I'm getting hit with Rolex from the friends. I'm seeing it, like, personally. I'm getting to hold it sometimes. He takes it off his wrist. You're holding that because the husband had an 18 karat gold date, his and hers.
Of course.
So it's this heavy gold object. Like, holy, this is nice. This is something. And then I'm seeing the ads, and the ads are Rolex is a prolific. They don't. They're everywhere. And you see all these artists, professionals, sports figures, explorers, adventurers, and they're all talking in these ads about, this watch is indispensable. It was, without this watch, they couldn't have done this feat. Right. Or, it's this artist or this someone who's saying, I'm a very skilled person, and I appreciate this Rolex because it's quality, it's craftsmanship, and it's great marketing. And I was very I just got hooked even more because it's in my face through the ads. And so there's just not a lot of there weren't a lot of ways I could interact with watches back then. It was just through spotting it on someone's wrist, and I'm not walking up to people on the street talking about their watch. So that's, you're not really you're spotting it, but you're not really getting up close. You see ads in magazines. You could visit a store and window shop. And, we didn't live in an area where there were like tons of Rolex ADs. So that was, and then it was a little intimidating, to window shop. Maybe you leave with a catalog. But yeah, once I had my sights set on the watch, buying a Rolex, that brand, I would tear ads out of magazines and tape them to my bedroom wall. So this was the late 90s, and I did not have a specific model in mind. I knew I wanted a Rolex. Many of the ads I had on my wall were actually women's advertised ladies models, because I was just fascinated by the brand and just this good-looking watch. And maybe also because I was, early influence was a ladies model. But that's kind of where the ads came into my life. I had them on my bedroom wall along with posters that typical teenagers have on their wall in the 90s. I always say I had a Lamborghini poster on my wall and like a Cindy Crawford poster on my wall. And, I would go to work and I would see the ad just kind of crudely ripped out and taped, scotch taped on the wall. And it would just, it was a little reminder like, all right, don't call out today. Go to work, just do your shift. Make your $5.25 an hour, right? And eventually you'll have enough money to go get something, right? And then, I eventually did get I did get a Rolex in 1998. So,
what'd you get?
So I had about $2,000 saved up, which was a lot of money back then. You could get a lot of watch for $2,000, and our high school was going on a class trip to Paris. And my mom wanted me to have that experience. So she sort of saved up and paid for me to go on this class trip to Paris, France. That's awesome. And, I had the money saved up and the exchange rate was good. So I just decided that this is when I'm going to buy the watch. I'm going to take my $2,000 and see how much Rolex I can get. What are my options, And again, I had no model in mind. I just, my art teacher in high school, she knew her way around nice stores. And so she kind of took me under her wing. And we went off one day while a lot of the classmates were sort of buying macaroons and T-shirts. I went off with her on a sort of a special mission to buy a Rolex. Yeah. And awesome. I remember walking into the shop, again, another amazing memory of childhood. I remember walking in with her, and it was an older sales lady. She might have been the owner of the store, possibly. And I remember her showing me some watches. I'm not even sure what the conversation was. That's a blur. I do remember a Pepsi GMT in the case, but ultimately I got a Datejust 16200, so just the oyster bracelet, steel bezel, gray or silver dial. And I remember her telling me, and I was putty in her hands. Like she could, nowadays it's, when we walk into a jeweler, like we tell them what we want because we've researched it. We know everything. But back in the day, the charm is that, it's an unexpected purchase. It's unplanned. They have everything for you to choose from. Oh boy, do I get this? Do I get this? Do I get this? It's not like that now.
Right.
We know. But I remember her telling me, this is a great watch for you. It's it's a good size. You have a small wrist. It's a little sporty because of the bracelet, but it's also dressy because it's a Datejust. And it all seemed to make sense. And I think I got it for like $1,900. At the time, I didn't travel with all that cash. My mom co-signed on a credit card. It had a $500 limit. And so I could not buy the watch with my credit card. And so my art teacher bought it for me and I paid her back when we got home. And so I got that watch in 98 in April 21st, 1998. Still have it. It's never been polished. And I chose, it's funny, there's so much, talk about condition, rightly so. But I remember, the first opportunity that I had to service the watch, the 5-year interval.
Yeah.
I remember taking it to the AD and I said, don't polish it because I don't want to lose the memories. That was really the reason I didn't want it polished. It had nothing to do with preserving it. I was going to sell it or retaining the original lines. Yeah. I wanted that watch to wear through life's ups and downs. I wanted to put scratches on it. I wanted the scars to tell the story where I'd been of my life. And so I can remember the first big scratch I got. I was in like science class and they had these tall, desks with sinks. And I remember just, hitting it hard against the edge of the counter of this desk. And I didn't want to lose those memories. And that was the reason. I remember, when I filled out the paperwork that day to send my watch in, I think I remember like bringing a red Sharpie with me to like write on it in addition to whatever they wrote in their little check, they'll check mark, like, make a note, do not polish case, do not refinish case. I think I wrote on it in like a red Sharpie, like, do not polish, because I didn't want to lose those memories. Right. And it would have, I have it to this day. Obviously, it's a very important watch in my collection.
Sure. So, yeah, that's amazing.
Hope that answers your question. Sorry, when you get me going down, it's just I get like I get a little verbose and it's hard to rein me in.
It's all good.
You can edit.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So what is Ad Patina?
So Ad Patina is basically, I love it's sourcing, hunting, finding original print magazine advertisements. And then, ultimately finding them a good home with people for a variety of reasons. People enjoy the ads, and getting them to be part of someone's space, part of on someone's wall. But yeah, it's really, it came about because it got hard to collect watches, the actual watches, because for again, a number of reasons. They're expensive, at least the ones I like. They're very competitive. And I just couldn't collect watches. And it was kind of a bummer because it's fun to collect things. It's fun to look for stuff. I love to get my watches through original owners and just do crazy stories about meeting people in a parking lot and paying for cash on a hood of a car in the dark with a parking lot light. Risky stuff. I like getting watches that way. It's part of the fun. You get that story in addition to the story that comes with a watch, because maybe you're buying it from a grandson and so the ads allowed me to collect watches. And every thrill, everything all the fun that I had finding a few of the early watches that I found, I got that same experience by hunting ads, and no one's doing it. Nobody knows where they are. There's no database that says, oh, this ad is in this magazine. So it's really a hunt. You have to be a detective. You have to try to find out where are they, meaning what magazine is an ad in, and then where do you find the magazine now? Right. So it's really it's a challenge. And
Because do you specify in any particular date range of ad?
no, I mean, in the beginning, I would find ads that I liked because I didn't have a plan to sell ads. It was really to collect ads because I was working at the time. I had a job. So I'm just collecting and, sharing what I find on Instagram. And so ultimately I'm spending money and time collecting stuff that if it's stuff I like. And so I just focused on a lot of Rolex ads. I mean, I was aware of a lot of watch ads. I know they exist. You've seen pictures of them. A Google image or maybe a story on a website uses it as in the story. But where the heck are these things? Are they even real? Is it a Photoshop? And so really in the beginning, it's just trying to find stuff. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's just a passion. It was a hobby. It was something to collect outside, something to collect, and it goes with the watches, so there's really, I mean, nowadays, I mean, the business has grown. I'm very fortunate, and I have a lot of different people who are interested in the ads that like all sorts of watches and products outside of watches.
Sure.
And so I'm sourcing a lot more nowadays. I'm buying a lot more nowadays because the market is a little bigger.
Has the industry grown or just your business? Are you kind of like the lead dog of this industry? I'm assuming you are.
Say so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know of anybody that does what I do. It's certainly I certainly did not invent collecting ads. I didn't I wasn't the first person to frame an ad or sell an ad.
Right.
But I think the level, the intensity, the degree, the crazy stuff I do, I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone does it.
So what is your approach to sourcing then? I bought an ad from you, but it was from the 1960s. Mm-hmm. So obviously those are going to be far more hard to come by.
Yeah, I mean, sourcing stuff nowadays is different than in the early days. I know where to find a lot, meaning I know what magazine it's in, but then you have to find the magazine. And,
right.
And so, ultimately, it's a question I get a lot. Where do you get your ads? How do you find stuff? And it's such a big topic. I mean, we could talk for hours.
Well, I'm sure you also don't really want to share.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something fun to share with the person who wants to know the story behind their ad that they buy.
Yeah, of course.
We've maybe talked about your ad that you bought specifically, and so that's kind of a nice, fun conversation to give people bullet points, talking points. Someone comes over their house or someone visits their office. Hey, what's on your wall? They can tell, oh, this is from such and such a magazine. It's from this year. It's, they can give them some good conversation. Because there's just like an old watch or any watch, you can start talking about an ad every which way. You can talk about its condition. You can talk about its visual. You can talk about so many aspects of an ad. At least I can. But ultimately, it really comes down to trying to find ads still intact in a magazine, versus buying something loose. Which things come to me loose too. I mean, I do a lot of the work myself.
So is that just like a straight blade, razor blade to cut them out?
It depends how the magazine's constructed. Some magazines are stapled. I mean, you have to deconstruct a magazine. You would never just open it and then take it out. You have to literally break a magazine and totally dissect it.
Yeah.
So depending how a magazine is constructed, sometimes there's glue involved, there's staples, every magazine has its own challenges, and every paper is different.
Sure.
Everything has to be, some magazines can hold up better over the years. But ultimately I try to find the magazine, and I do a lot of it myself, just finding magazines wherever you can find magazines.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places you can buy magazines. They come through obvious channels, and they come from people who follow me on Instagram. Customers will send me magazines sometimes. I had someone the other day reach out to me, hey, I just went through our parents' attic, and there's a bunch of old Playboys and old Car and Driver, do you want them? And I was like, yeah, send them, let me pay you for shipping at this point, ship them to me, and I'll eventually get to go through them. It's a process to go through ads. It's not something you can do quickly.
Right. Go
through magazines. And, so I initially just, I got a sense of what he had. the particular issues, I bought from him, I don't know for certain there's anything in them. There could be a gold mine, could be absolutely nothing. But, he sent them to me. I paid him back for shipping. And then I just, I was like, I'm going to go through them eventually. And then, what I pull out, I'll get back to you. And, if I find some good stuff, then I'll, kind of pay you individually for the stuff I found. So things come all different ways. We were just on our vacation in Rhode Island and, I found something in an antique shop. And then I bought something off somebody from Craigslist that was in the area.
That's cool.
I have a few people who are sort of my network that look for stuff for me. It's probably like a watch dealer. A watch dealer gets stuff from everywhere.
Yeah.
They go to the pawn shop. They go to a show. They have customers sell stuff back to them. They find stuff, someone messages them an email.
Sure.
They get it from other dealers. Same thing. The stuff comes from everywhere.
So when did it become full-time for you?
Full-time in spring of 2019. So at the time, I just decided it was, so retail, the way retail works, at least in Chicago, it's super slow in the winter because it's so cold. And we have the store I was working at was like a brick and mortar store on the street. So people actually have to you're not parking in a garage, it's not in a mall. So you actually have to it's just brutal weather. It's very windy and cold. So it's super slow. And basically, I worked in commission, a little hourly wage commission. And, you're not really making much money in the winter selling. And I was like, I could probably, if I focused a little bit on my work and, found some more stuff, did a little bit better job sharing what I do, I could probably replace my income doing the watch ads.
Sure.
Which who wouldn't want to work for them? I mean, I don't know, working for myself has always been appealing to me, and so, 2019, I kind of shifted. I took the plunge and made the, took the risk. And I just transitioned. And I allowed myself, instead of standing in a store waiting for someone to walk in, for 8 hours, and I'd help 2 people, I was able to sit at my computer or work from my kitchen table and spend 8 hours on the business.
Yeah, being
and
productive.
that 8 hours that I spent on the business ended up, helping me get to where I am today, putting things in place, whether it was developing, whether it was finding more stuff or working on my Instagram, or when I did have people reach out to me, I was able to spend time writing them emails instead of having to rush into the, I remember working at the store, you're not supposed to be on your phone doing stuff. You got to work. I remember taking a lot of bathroom breaks and doing a lot of transactions in the bathroom, because you want to get back to somebody, especially in the early days. It's oh my God, somebody wants something. Let's make sure we do a good job and get back to them promptly and give them good service. Again, going back to the Nordstrom days, or how I would want to be helped. Nowadays it's a little different. I mean, everyone's very patient, and I'm always explaining to people what's going on in my life at the moment. Hey, let me get back to you tomorrow. But so 2019, and then it went well for a year. And then, I was just about to celebrate 1 year in business, and then the pandemic hit. So it was the perfect way to celebrate a year in business. Now will I be out of business because now we've got a pandemic.
Yeah, but the irony behind that is so many people were investing in their homes during the pandemic. I mean, even just the restoration hardware stock went up like crazy. I don't know what it's at now, but I'm saying home improvement and all that stuff became a thing because people were spending more time in their house. So I would imagine that helped you.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. I was kind of panicking a little.
Sure, everybody was panicking.
Oh boy, businesses are closing, things are shutting down. I mean, I'm not keeping up with things in the news some people are. Yeah. I'm just worried about okay, I have our son, my wife's working, great. I've got this little business. Mm-hmm. That's, and, but yeah, it really ended up, working out. I think, like you said, some businesses during the pandemic, that initial 2020 didn't do so well, and some flourished. Yeah. And a lot of people were working. I mean, I think part of the reason that I was successful through 2020 and was able to kind of grow is that people were working from home, and hey, they're looking at their space. They want to redesign something. Yeah. Part of the reason is also just work ethic, not giving up. I mean, with any business, that you always have challenging times. I mean, even to this day, getting ready for this event, it's challenging. I've never done a trade show. Yeah. But you have to embrace and find. You have to, when I talk to people about the business, sometimes it's more fun to talk about the challenges, Because if you have challenges, that means you're probably onto something or doing something right. Like, oh my God, how do I get this many frames done this week? You know, like, how do I do it? You know, how do I get back to answer all these emails? It's a good thing if you're, so I like talking about the challenges, maybe even more so than like what's going on, what's good, what's going good. Yeah, 2020 was a good year. It continued to grow. And then ever since then, I mean, like I say, every month, every quarter, every year, it's just, more people are finding out what I do. And I think that's kind of my goal, is to just share what I do, because I just share what I love doing, which is, finding ads. And, I get to, this business allows me to do, obviously it's kind of just, I'm the main person, and I have to juggle a lot of the responsibilities, and I get to do so many roles that I wouldn't do if I worked for somebody. I get to do the shipping, I get to do customer service, I get to create, I get to source, and it's fun to be able to toggle back and forth and do all that stuff. Challenging, but it's fun.
Sure. How do you set your pricing?
That's a good question. So it's kind of always been this model. Like you have to kind of start somewhere. Obviously, what did something cost you? What do you think it's worth? There's no market for ads other than eBay, and that's really not the best place to use as a benchmark or an example.
Why not?
So one of the reasons I thought this would be a potential, good business is because for me, and I could be successful, is because I have, I'm involved in the watch community. I have knowledge of watches. I'm interested in watches. I know the difference between this watch and that watch. And so when I have an ad in front of me, not all Rolex ads are created equal. There's so many Rolex ads, but I don't know, a Datejust ad, with a two-tone Datejust from the 80s, isn't the same as a Submariner ad from the 60s, right? Like, because the watches maybe aren't the same. And someone who is, potentially selling something on eBay, kind of maybe isn't into watches. They just see Rolex as Rolex. And so I felt like there's an opportunity, some of these ads that have special watches that are coveted, grails, cool, there was an opportunity to get them to be, I don't know what the right word is, like appreciated or respected, the way I thought they should be, the way the watches are, right? Like certain watches are in our minds and on our wish lists, and for a variety of reasons, and there's no reason that the ads can't mirror or that same trajectory, you know? And so you have to start somewhere with pricing. Again, you got to kind of like, okay, what did I pay for it? What do I think it's worth? What's, when I'm doing this, I got to like start in a way, start small. You can't just put some crazy price tag on something. You got to kind of build the business. And so I kind of had like a starting point, like an average price for something. And then, you kind of adjust up and down depending on what the ad is, And to me, it's a gut thing, right? Because again, no one's doing this. It's not like a watch market where, okay, Daytonas are cost this much. I got to be within this range based on condition. There's nobody doing what I do. And I guess at this point, I've had a lot of experience with customers from all over the world, all different types of customers. I mean, I get to help a girlfriend buying a gift for her boyfriend. I get to help a collector that has, tons of Instagram followers. And so I've had the benefit of having a lot of information, interactions with people. Everything I sell, I talk to the person. There's nobody that's shopping on my website and just clicking. Like, I know every single person. I've talked to them. I know why they're buying it, chances are. I know a little bit about their background. I know the watches they have. So I have a lot of good data. And pricing really just comes down to, it's pretty simple. I mean, it obviously has a lot to do with, condition matters to me. I'm a pretty tough grader on condition. I can talk about condition of an ad just like you can a watch, just like a dealer can a watch. Watch won't cost as much as a service dial or something. It's the same thing with an ad if it has a strong crease or something. Availability is a big thing. Some ads are just really hard to find. I might get one a year. that's going to play into pricing. Demand obviously plays into pricing. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of set the prices. I don't know, and you just got to see what happens. You know, it's like you have to value just like you would value your time, you value your work. You think you're doing, I know what goes on behind the scenes. You know how much work it takes to find an ad, to frame something, to ship something, and that's all kind of like not really built in, but I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't have like a special I don't have a special, strategy. It's a gut thing. And luckily nowadays I've just, again, I have so many past sales that's another reason, I price things today based on past sales.
Sure.
I was talking to someone today on the phone. We had a 45-minute conversation in the car, about doing a project, and he was interested in 2 ads. And I had 2 examples, and one was in crazy good condition and one was not. And it was a very popular ad, and there was a huge price discrepancy between the 2. And I just, I kind of give them the price, and I was like, I just sold one recently, framed, similar condition for this price. And so it lets somebody know, like, there's a market, someone paid that price. Maybe it's just like when people ask, like, why is a watch worth what it's worth? It's worth what someone's going to pay for it. I don't know. It's hard to kind of like, again, a pricing conversation, that's a very that's a cool conversation to have. And I'm sure you can, I'm sure it could be like an MBA case study or something, pricing ads. But I think the system that I have now, and it works. I mean, I have a range of prices, right? Like, I mean, from $35 to, hundreds of dollars. And I'm always willing to talk to someone and explain to somebody why the price is what it is. And I'm always willing to talk to somebody about what they want to buy, whether it's $35 or a couple $100.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm in a good place. I mean, people respond well to the pricing. I'm happy to get on the phone and discuss anything and everything about the ads. That's one thing I love about what I do, is educating people about the experience, why we should frame something a certain way if we're doing a project. Do you want this one for this price, or do you want to wait for a better condition one that might cost a little more? It might take a little time to find. It's really important that people know what they're getting, because this is not a product that people for the most part, have any real experience with, right? Like, I mean, there's so much information about the GMT master. Again, people are more educated about that than the seller. But with this, it's a whole new world, and it's really exciting for me to be the person who is sort of advertising the ads.
Yeah, it's weird when you're not in a saturated market, because like in my business, right, it's completely saturated. Mm-hmm. So like I can kind of understand what my product costs retail, because there are other brands I can kind of compare myself to, and also take into account like the actual cost of making my good, you know what I mean? Whereas like you're not making the ad, right? Like you're not the photographer, you're not the publisher, you're not the, you know what I mean? Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of interesting.
Costs are all over the place. I mean, I'm always buying stuff. Yeah. Never know. I mean, I know what people are going to want.
Yeah.
There's trends, and I know what ads sell really well,
right.
But I want to have a variety of ads. I want to have all kinds of stuff. I'm the marketplace. I'm the place you go to get a great ad or talk about sourcing something if I don't have it.
Sure.
And the ads are all one-off, unique examples, right? Mm-hmm. There isn't like, like I just said, the example I just used about the Submariner ad. There's no one, even though it's the same ad, if you have 10 of them in front of me, they all look different, and I can point out differences, and that can be why one is $100 more than the other, or $20 less than the other. It's a very interesting part of the job, pricing things. And, it's fun. It's a whole new world, and, we'll see where it goes. But, I obviously try to be fair, and I have to respect the stuff that people have bought. If someone pays something for something, I can't all of a sudden sell it to someone for less, because now that person, you have to be consistent. You have to be fair.
Yep.
And, it's really important for me to, I have a responsibility, I think, at this point, to kind of maintain this market, and it's fun to do. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for ads to be part of people's lives.
Sure.
As a form of expression or art. If you find the right ad that speaks to you, if it's in the condition that you're cool with, and if you frame it the right way, it can be as cool and as relevant on your wall as a painting or a photo of your family.
Sure. You have an Explorer 2 on right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's black dial.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like about the watch? Why'd you buy it?
So this is a really special watch. I bought it in 2010, so I've owned it a dozen years. I bought it from, at the time, HQ Milton from Jacek.
Sure.
He has his own really super successful business now, Tropical Watch, and a fun place to scroll and look and dream. But it was 2010. At the time, I didn't know what Hodinkee was. They had been around, but it was not what it is today. And I did not have Instagram. I don't even know if it was around in 2010. So this was the last purchase. At the time, I didn't know it, but this was the last watch purchase I made, totally uninfluenced by anybody.
Media.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, because I've been influenced. There's a number of great examples where I've been influenced and it's been awesome. But that's, another topic. But I bought it in 2010, and I very much like the Datejust purchase. At the time, I'm working at Nordstrom. Things are going well. I'm, earning some awards as a salesperson, and wanted to get myself something nice. And, a Rolex was my brand, and I wanted something different. I wanted a sport model, something, a little bigger. My thought process was not about, I want an Explorer 2. It really sounds strange, like unbelievable. Like, what? You didn't have a target? I was looking at Night one night on the internet. I think I was on Time Zone. It's an old watch forum.
Yep.
And I saw a listing for this watch. And the story I tell is that Jacek had great pics, which he still does today. He has awesome pictures, and the watch just looked beautiful in his pictures. I was not like, ooh, do I want a polar dial? Do I want a black dial?
Right.
There was no, that was not even on my mind, which today that's a huge thing. You're either a polar guy or a black dial guy. I was completely drawn to the pictures. I think at the time it was $3,400. It was advertised as sort of like a new old stock watch. It had all the stuff with it. And I remember just buying it. I think I called him up. I had never done a bank transfer. I had never had something shipped to me that expensive. So it was just a great experience. A long time ago. I don't know. It's hard to replicate that experience today with just the way things are.
Sure.
But I love the black dial. For me, I started off with a black dial, so I'm biased, but I think it wears smaller on the wrist. I have a really small wrist.
I agree.
So between a black dial and the bezel being, more sloped and not like protruding like a sub or a GMT where you got the kind of the serrated edges, it wears smaller. It's more flush to the wrist. Mm-hmm. And it's a little more under the radar. I've owned a Polar. I've owned two. I've just happened to have the opportunity to buy them over the years. I'm an original owner. You can't pass it up if you see something good. It's just a bigger watch on my wrist. That white dial, it's so bright. It just wears bigger. And I always tell people, I think that I love the Polar in the ads. It's very, it's beautiful for visually in the ads. There's way more Polar dial ads than there are ads showing a black dial. Mm-hmm. And I've done posts and written captions about that. Why I think that's the reason. But Polar's a great watch. It's a beautiful dial. But I got the black one first. I've had it for 12 years. I got the watch. Watch came to me without a scratch on it, whether it was new old stock or whether it was touched up a little bit. So every single scratch on this watch I put on it over 12 years. Mm-hmm. It's an important one. I love the Explorer 2. I have an old one.
So you're big into Rolex. Are there any would you consider that a theme to your collection, or do you have any themes or overarching sort of approaches?
No, my theme is I don't really like to call myself a collector, even though I have a couple Rolex. I'm a wearer. I love wearing my watch. When I started off, I wanted to buy one watch and wear it forever. I never bought that Datejust in '98 thinking, all right, now what's next? That was it. I'm glad I have a few watches, but I could totally just wear one watch my whole life. I would be perfectly fine with that. I love the idea of putting on a watch and just wearing it. So I wear my watches now in like long stretches. So I like this Explorer 2, I put it on July 1st. I won't take it off. I'll switch on September 1st. I'll wear it for 2 months through the summer, every single day, morning, noon, and night, doing everything. The next watch I wear, again, I'll probably wear it for 2 months straight. I never change. The way the watch came is the way I wear it.
So you don't swap straps?
I never. No, I would never do that. It's just not my style.
I'm the exact opposite.
It's not my style. I don't even like to clean my watches. Like I literally just want to put them on and wear them, and whatever happens during the day, whether it's soap suds,
yeah, sure,
get on the dial from washing dishes, salt from the beach, I just like to embrace this wearing the watch. It really, like, again, it goes back to the ads. When somebody looked at an ad, probably through the 90s, like they were just buying that watch and wearing it.
Sure.
It's a different world now, and I can appreciate it, and I can find the beauty in where we are now with all the interest in watches and values. I mean, I can make so many cases for why it's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a theme. I mean, I have no problem owning another brand. I just haven't encountered that watch. And unfortunately, I feel like my tastes are expensive, and it's a really big decision to buy. If I want to buy a dressy Patek, right? Like, it's a big decision. Of course, you can, if you don't like it, you can sell it. But I don't want to go into a purchase thinking, if I'll just try it out. If I don't like it, I can sell it. I really want to go into every watch purchase thinking this is the one that I can be happy with this for forever. But I don't know. I have a really strong connection with Rolex going back to my original story, going back 24 years.
Sure.
So I feel like I bought the watch for a good. I've got a good good reason why I got attached to the brand. The place I'm coming from, and gosh, I mean, I'm just so comfortable with an Oyster bracelet. I'm just so comfortable with the Oyster case. I've just come to just be so comfortable with the watch.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, I mean, I'll hopefully have other stuff. You never know.
You post vintage Range Rover ads from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a big car guy, or are you just a Rover fan?
No, I'm not a car guy. I mean, I think I like the cars. I live vicariously through people. I mean, I can appreciate cars, right?
Sure.
Like, of course, the design of whether it's whatever it is.
Well, you had a Lamborghini poster, my man.
Yeah, well, that's when I was younger, and yeah, I mean, a Lamborghini is a cool car. I mean, I saw a Lamborghini truck on the highway the other day, and I was like, couldn't take my eye off, and I'm just kind of like, thinking about it, from a design standpoint, like,
sure.
What's the but yeah, I mean, look, I love the enthusiasm around objects, right? Like, I love the collector community that's out there for Rovers, or Porsches, for example. Those are two big brands that I sell.
Cultish.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, God, I would love to buy a Land Rover Discovery, an early one. And part of the reason is that part of the reason I would do it, even though it's probably not a good financial decision.
Yeah, the maintenance.
Is because there's such a fun community around that model.
Totally.
And I could just imagine all the good relationships I have now that I've met through watches, I could have that through this vehicle.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's that design speaks to me, that era, 90s. Again, if I were to buy like a vintage car, it would probably be from the 90s, because I couldn't afford a 60s Porsche, but that wouldn't be I would get something that like brings me back to your childhood. My childhood, stuff that I would, but yeah, I'm not a car guy. I can appreciate them. I've learned a lot about cars, and I'm still learning about them through the ads. That's, another beautiful thing about the ads. You can go down a rabbit hole with these ads. I mean, I literally, when I was on vacation, I was fortunate to meet a grandson of a gentleman who was responsible for creating the America's Cup programs in the 60s and 70s, and having Rolex be Rolex ads in the program. And gosh, just now I want to read a book about the America's Cup. Now I want to learn about that hobby, that passion. So these ads, can open up. They have the power to open up doors to learn about history, and that's with the cars. I mean, I'm not into F1, but I love that people are, and I love that that's a space where people get together and like have a drink and their families get together and people get new best friends because of that. And some of that stuff, I mean, it's super cool. Like all that old 1960s Le Mans, like that stuff, I mean, that's beautiful. The design, the era, the photography back then.
Sure.
Pictures of cars with headlamps on and just blurring by. I mean, the photography, that lifestyle. I mean, we love that stuff. Like, we didn't grow up in that era, but we love that stuff. I mean, and but yeah, some of the ads are great. I mean, Rover ads, I think, are just really great. Rover ads are unique. There's just so many good ones that came out during the 90s, and they all kind of have the same format.
Yeah.
And the headline is so clever and witty, and it ties into the picture so well. And I was fortunate to meet somebody who's very close to the creation of the ads. And so I kind of have a soft spot soft spot for the ads because I've met somebody who helped create them. And part of what I ultimately want to do is educate people, not just about my experience finding ads, but also I want to learn about the people who created them. I want to learn about the agencies. I want to learn about the publishing, printing. I just don't have the time now to go down those areas.
Who did you meet?
It was a gentleman who worked at an ad agency that their account was Land Rover.
Sure.
So his name is Alan Richardson. And
where were they based?
I mean, he has his own business now in Colorado. But
Okay.
he actually found me through, I did an interview years ago, and it was published online. And one of the questions the interviewer asked was, what are the most compelling ads? And I mentioned Land Rover ads are compelling. And he happened to have read it. And, luckily I mentioned his project,
His work,
and
yeah.
then he reached out to me, and
That's
that's
cool.
the thing. These ads, I always tell people, are somebody's life's work, right? Like, think about a piece of art, the struggle of an artist, their life, what they went through to create their art. People love the story about artists, Basquiat or Picasso, and people hang those in their homes. People, for good reason, are in love with art, and we don't know the names of the people who created some of these ads that stand out in our mind, but there's a person who made the Rolex Explorer top of the Matterhorn, or a group of people. And they sat at a desk or a drafting table, and they thought about the headline. They wrote the copy. They came up with a photo where they did a photo shoot with somebody's hand in that watch.
Yeah.
And
That's such a cool ad.
That's somebody's, like, that's an artist. Those are artists.
Yeah.
And in the same way that we celebrate artists by buying their art, I want to celebrate these people's careers by framing their art, because that's their art. It's just a different form.
Sure.
And I think today, watches are such a part of our life. I say to people that, I have more watch photos in my phone than photos of my kids.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of photos of my kids. So that says I have a lot of photos of watches and ads. And so it makes sense to have this object part of your space.
Yeah.
Because you have pictures of your kids. You have, it's not out of the realm to start appreciating these ads for a lot of reasons and just display them. I mean, I hate to think about an ad stuck in a magazine or something on a bookshelf,
which is closed.
never getting seen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's just, God, they're so beautiful. Some of them.
Well, as we're wrapping up here, because we got to set up for the show, obviously. But do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Wesley.
I'm not putting you on the spot. If you do, yeah. But if not, let's roll.
No, I wasn't. You flipped the script. I wasn't thinking about asking you a question, but I guess you've done podcasts for a long time, and you've interviewed a lot of different people, not just watch people.
Yeah.
Different industry folks. What's the what is your what do you look for when you're sort of thinking about, like, oh, I want to reach out to this person? I mean, you have a great reputation, you have a brand, so.
Well, that's nice of you to say.
But you ultimately want to you want to use your platform, your hard work you've put in, you want to be able to have guests come on that are that you find interesting,
Sure.
that you think other people will find interesting, because you have data about, hey, what show did well, who listened more. Thank you for having me on. But
course.
what do you look for? Like, what's interesting to you about
like a prospective guest?
A guest? Yeah,
Well, I think to kind of piggyback on your data sort of statement, I have found historically the watch podcasts have outperformed a lot of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've decided if my audience is really enjoying these watch related posts or episodes rather, frankly speaking, I enjoy them. So it just makes it that much easier to choose people, because it gives me at least a subject matter to piggyback on and ride that wave of what people are seemingly attracted to anyway. So I don't really look for anything in particular other than, obviously, it is somebody, A, that I haven't interviewed before. B, I try to find somebody that may have or hasn't done a lot of interviews, right? So because nobody knows that you probably were raised by a single parent based on your other interviews, I'm anticipating, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing I would say, I haven't. A lot of the questions that you ask are not the normal question, which is nice.
Right.
What I do, what I'm sort of known for at the moment, it's a big topic, and it's hard for me to do it justice.
Right.
But so when you ask questions outside of just the obvious,
right,
it makes the conversation a little more comfortable, because it's it's just a different just different answers, and it also obviously people can listen and fill in the blanks and get to, the reason the reason why I do this or that. Oh, it's because of this. I never knew that. And I think it's really important when people want to. I think people love to hear stories, and find out stuff about.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I do this show the way I do it is because, frankly speaking, it's a lot less salesy,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, I want to know you, Nick, and yes, I want to talk about Ad Patina, but I don't want to just spend an hour of you telling me why I need to buy your stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because all you have to do for that is go to my website, read the product description. That's
mm-hmm.
why I'm doing what I'm doing. And this is why it's worth what it's worth, because this condition's incredible. And I'm sure you're,
mm-hmm.
And your conversations with customers would then say that anyway, to your point earlier. But like, for me, it's like, I want to talk about the product. I want to talk about the business, but
mm-hmm.
more importantly, I want to talk about you and like why you do what you do. So for me, what I look for is people that I'm interested in selfishly. And how did you get to where you got? Because this is the first business I've ever started.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never owned a business before and you think you know what you're doing, you're sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
And I figured, if I'm going to be learning, why not share it with a group of other people? Or dare I say, inspire others to start their own business if they've been, because let's face it, most people are unhappy at work. If they'd rather be doing something else,
mm-hmm.
get up and do it. You can do it on the side. You did it as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many parallels that you and I have, frankly, that like, I was working at Gucci when I conceptualized this business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a retail guy. I've got over 20 years experience working retail.
I had no idea. I wouldn't have thought that.
So
yeah.
I was literally working at Gucci, did it on my lunch break,
mm-hmm.
like sketched out the logo based on a Google search.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 years later, here we are.
Yeah. I think, talking business, like about the ads, that happens just when someone's interested in something.
Yeah.
But what doesn't come up a lot is the backstory, and it's the tough times, which again, the tough times are they make for good stories,
Sure.
And we sort of scratch the surface on the trajectory, but I think that it's good for people to hear like sort of the real story and what goes on behind the scenes to a certain degree.
100%.
Because it's not always how it looks on the front end. What people see through Instagram, that's the finished product. But there's a lot to get there personally and just through business to get that finished product made or whatever. And I like, my business model because I do get to talk to a lot of people personally, even if I'm just messaging them, emailing them. Hey, I'm on vacation with the family right now. Let me get back to you tomorrow. Like I love being forthcoming and giving people like a glimpse into my life. I don't have a problem with that. Cause I like to be, I don't have a problem being, transparent and so it's fun for me to, answer those questions that you asked about, my upbringing and what my mom did for work. I think it just helps people who are familiar with a brand. It helps the people become even more form another opinion about them, whether it's good or bad. This guy likes Tom Brady, unfollow, or oh wow, I was a single mom. I was a single parent. My mom was a single parent too. Let me reach out to him. We have something in common. Yeah. I think the goal is really to find. It's great to find, common interest. I mean, I'm sure this is the first time we've met, and luckily we get to meet in person. Yeah. And, you're here for a few days, and, probably based on our conversation today, we'll pick up on it tonight. Yeah. Or, it's more likely that I'll come to California now because I know another person in California that I've hung out with. Like any business, sometimes you gotta make choices, hard choices. What am I going to keep doing the same? What am I going to change? Every year it's like, okay, what am I going to do a little differently this year? Not to like change things up completely, but you want to grow as a business. You want to try something new, offer something new, offer something different, expand a little bit.
All right. So in reference to expanding and changing, what's next for Patina?
Well, I think again, the goal right now is sharing what I do, and I think there's a lot of potential to find great ads and frame great ads. I think there's a lot of stuff out there that's never been discovered, and that's my job. But I want more people to know what I do.
Sure.
How
do you advertise?
Nothing strategic. It's just word of mouth, and I don't know. I mean, I'm very low tech, so my website is never up to date. I don't really know a lot about SEO. Right. My Instagram, I don't know how Instagram works. I couldn't tell you these days.
Because you got a fairly large following, man.
Sure, but I don't know who those people. I don't know if they're robots or real people. Sometimes I post stuff and it goes crazy. Sometimes it's like, where's everybody?
Crickets. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how the algorithm works, and I don't really care. I try to just.
I love that.
Do what I do, and. It all works out in the end, knock on wood. Yeah. But I think, one of my goal for next year, I'm trying to get the operations a little bit more streamlined behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I would love to bring somebody on to help me.
Sure.
But I can't bring somebody on unless I'm a little bit better organized.
Sounds like you're in dire need of a filing cabinet.
Yeah, I've got a lot of drawers, and I don't know. I think I would like to, if I can get a little more organized. Yeah. There's the potential that I could move my space out of our home into like a little shop.
Yeah.
And have somebody come in and work with me.
Yeah.
And I want to free up some time to do more hunting, to build out the site a little bit better so I can keep things updated more real time. I can show a wider array of ads.
Sure.
Like there's so many great fashion ads. I think that there's a big opportunity to do fashion stuff.
Sure.
I mean, it's to have a space would be incredible.
Yeah.
But it's just baby steps, and
sure.
I also like the charm of how I do things now.
Yeah.
Because it's
personal.
Yeah, I'm okay with not doing things the way you're supposed to do something. I always struggle with, do I make my site e-commerce or do I leave it the way it is, old school? And I'm probably going to make a little tweak, but it's still going to be very much a personal business,
That's great. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for the time. I hate to run, but or I hate that we have to run. It's not even me running, it's us running. Looking forward to the show. It's so great to meet you, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Nick.
Same. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to continue our discussion off the microphone.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, till then.
Thanks, Wesley.
Okay. This wraps up this episode of the Standard H podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track, as well as to Clear Audio for the noise canceling headphones. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.